Welcome to Vienna, Austria. Join me, cferTravels, as we explore the historical sites while highlighting some local food options and where I share my travel tips to prepare you for your next adventure.
So we're out here in Vienna, made it to our hotel room. Got the main bedroom right here. Couch. Mirror. Hello. Going over. Nice little courtyard view. Nothing too crazy. And then we got the kitchen. And the shower. Not too bad. 4 nights here in Austria. Day one, let's go.
In our first morning in Vienna, we headed down to Cafe Latte Art for some coffees and then headed over to Votive Kirk. This is a neo-Gothic architecture style church that was built between 1859 and 1879. When we were, walking around Vienna in the very first morning there, this structure truly seemed to be tall and impressive, and it is. But I think, especially since it was more of our first experience, first building that we saw during our time there, especially stood out even more. Votive Kirk was created due to an assassination attempt on the Emperor of Austria at the time, and the church was resurrected by his brother as a thank you to God for saving his life. So after the church, we then proceeded to head back out onto the streets of Vienna and walk to our next attraction. This was our first time really walking the streets besides from the metro to the hotel to the church that we just came from. So we hopped out into the streets, and really the first thing that I noticed was just the classical buildings, as we see here in this video. The streets were not too busy. Granted, this is the middle of a day on a probably a work day here, so at night the streets did pick up to be a little bit more, but overall I was just really impressed. Oh, there's a church again that we just came from, Votive Kirk. Really impressed by the architecture that Vienna really had to offer. The type of architecture styles that we are looking at are Baroque and from the Classical era, which I found to be extremely cool, as coming from the United States, we do not have any buildings like this. We then headed over to the Straßenbahn tram station, where we hopped on a tram, took a bus over to the Danube Tower. The city of Vienna has the Straßenbahn, the U-Bahn, which is the metro, and the bus system. We use these every day during our time in the city to get us from attraction to attraction. The hardest one to get to was the Danube Tower. So here's our walk to the Danube Tower, and it took us through a residential district. As you can see the tower in the distance, and soon we will be up top. Here is the top of Danube Tower, which is the tallest building in Vienna. The view up here was truly spectacular, and the wind was also crazy. Here we had to look over the Donaustadt district, which is the more business and more modern part of Vienna, and there is the Danube River. Beyond the river is the old town of Vienna, which we just came from at the church. We then headed back down from the tower to grab some dinner. Here at this restaurant, it was very, very cool to see because the locals were just taking in a soccer match or a football match. Here we were able to try a cferTravels, which is a cheese egg noodle, some salad, and another local dish which I am forgetting the name on. I apologize. The cferTravels was super cheesy. As we can see here in the video, whenever I would pick up my spoon and bring it to my mouth, the line of cheese would just follow. It was really made for a great dining experience. Although I will say halfway through this dish, I wish I had more flavors, so I recommend sharing this with a friend who has a more savory dish. We then woke up the following morning and headed to Orange Blue Cafe. We grabbed ourselves a bagel and a coffee and made our way to the Belvedere Palace. When walking up to Belvedere Palace, you first have to go through the Belvedere Palace Gardens. This is a 42-acre large garden. You can expect to see coordinated landscape setups that enhance the grandeur of the palace. It has water fountains which bring energy and life to the garden, and beautiful rock formations which guide you to the palace doorsteps. The Belvedere Palace was commissioned by Prince Eugene of Savoy, who was a prominent military leader and art collector, and it was commissioned as his summer residence. It not only served as a residence, but also as a space to display his extensive art collection. This building was built in 1714 and completed in 1723 and was built using Baroque architectural style. All these years later, it is still an art museum, and the most famous painting it houses is The Kiss by Gustav Klimt in Upper Belvedere. If you are into paintings, you definitely want to check out the Upper Belvedere Art Museum, as it has an extensive collection ranging from old to modern. Here, we take a look at the inside of the building, and this is technically the inside of the museum. Man, when we first entered this building, me and my friend both said "wow" as our eyes hit the top of the ceiling and we took in the huge chandeliers, you know, and just the grand scale, man. Just looking at it through the camera just doesn't show the scale of this building right now. It was crazy. Even to see the really detailed art at the top of the ceiling. I tried to get closer there for you, but man, this building was truly impressive. However, if you are not into paintings and art, then I would skip this museum, at least going inside. You definitely want to come check out the exterior and take a walk through the gardens, but I don't know if it's necessarily a requirement or a must-do if you are not into paintings. So, we finished checking out the exterior of the Belvedere Palace and then headed over to Karlskirk. On our way to Karlskirk, we came across the Soviet Red Army Memorial, which pays tribute to the liberation of Vienna in World War II. So we continued our way onto Karlskirk and came across another just really cool looking building straight out of the Renaissance era. Um, we took the scenic route to Karlskirk and we wanted to check out more of the architecture on our second day here in this beautiful classical city. And here, coming up on Karlskirk here, this church was truly special, and we are about to see what was inside here in a moment. The exterior of this building was grand and has a Baroque architectural style. It was built in 1739, and let's check out the inside. As we entered the church, we came across a art exhibit. This was the Eocene by a local artist named Thomas Saraceno. This is thanks to the Karlskirk Contemporary Arts Program, who curates, creates, and finances temporary art exhibits to be shown in the church. I believe they began showing these exhibits back in 2019 and 2020, which was lucky enough for us because we happened to be in the country at that time. So we finished checking out the interior of the church and headed up the elevator to experience the art exhibit from the top dome. And I have to admit, at this point, I was starting to feel a little squeamish in the legs as I am slightly afraid of heights. We then reached the top of the church and got very close to the dome, as you can see here, which gave us a new perspective as we were able to look down on the art exhibit. While at the top, we also we got a new perspective of the city of Vienna. There you can see St. Stephen's Cathedral, which we'll be going to later on in the video. So we finished getting our final glimpses of the Vienna skyline and headed back down to end the sightseeing for the day. We decided to go to local shops, check out more architecture, and eventually ended our night at the local Wurstel stand. We then decided to start our day off at the Vienna City Hall. Here, I know it's a nighttime picture, I just wanted to show the contrast of how it's lit up at night. Very beautiful building, definitely recommend checking out when in the city of Vienna. It is a must-see. First thing in the morning, we headed over to Hero Square. Upon arriving at Hero Square, we were greeted by these arching columns and into the entryway. The entryway was dark, as we can see here in the video, but then soon we will be into the light in the grand open palace. Upon entering the palace, we were greeted by a horse and carriage, you can see here in the video, and that truly added to the charm of this great section in the city of Vienna. Hero Square, or Heldenplatz, was designed in the 19th century by Gottfried Semper as a central square of the Kaiser Forum, a project which was never fully realized due to the collapse of the Habsburg Empire in 1918. You can find architecture and grand statues from the Habsburg monarchy within the square. The statues you will observe pay tribute to the Prince Eugene of Savoy, who was one of Austria's greatest military minds. During our time in Hero Square, it was a quieter environment. It felt as if you were sectioned off from the rest of the city of Vienna. When in Hero Square, we observed locals and tourists taking horse carriage rides. You can hear the hooves clacking against the old stone cobble roads within the square. This truly added character and felt as if we were transported back into time. The old Habsburg monarch buildings were converted into museums that locals and tourists can enjoy together. Inside these museums are old and historical sculptures from ruins along with interactive exhibits. The exhibits showcase imperial masterpieces by Rubens, Rembrandt, and Raphael, and house the Austrian and German imperial crowns. Albertina Museum was founded in 1776 by the Duke Albert of Saxe-Teschen. This collection now contains over 1 million drawings and prints from the late Gothic era to the present. From Michelangelo to Dürer to Rembrandt and Rubens, from Klimt, the Albertina Museum's collection affords a rich overview of 600 years of art history. Albertina Museum is made up of 20 individual, painstakingly restored Habsburg residence staterooms. This was my favorite part of the museum. We went to the Yellow Chamber, the Audience Hall, the Rococo Chamber, among others. These chambers sweep visitors away into the magnificent world of classicism with their precious wall coverings, chandeliers, and exquisite furniture. After finishing up at Albertina Museum, we then headed over to the Austrian National Library. Founded in 1368 by the Habsburg dynasty, the now Austrian Library is the largest library in Austria, with a rich history dating back to the 14th century. After the fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the library was renamed to the Austrian National Library in 1920. Here you can find a collection that includes over 12 million items, including books, manuscripts, maps, globes, and musical scores. After walking around from Albertina Museum, we stumbled upon St. Stephen's Cathedral. This is a distinctive feature of the Vienna skyline, and it is one of the most famous and recognizable buildings in the city. The inside is a contrast from the colorful, beautiful exterior you see. The roof contains a mosaic that truly has colors that just pop out to you. It reminded me of kind of the South American poncho type artistry style, which is really interesting. Even though I know they're not related, it just reminded me of that. Inside it was dark, quiet, and cold, with Gothic lancet-style windows and tall Gothic ceiling. The inside really embraces the true character of this architectural style. We then finished off our day at a local dive bar called The Underdog. You can expect to find lots of local dive bars here within the city of Vienna. This dive bar was themed with dogs, which we found to be particularly enjoyable as it was nice and light to end our day. From the dive bar, we headed to the local metro station. From there, we headed to our local Warsaw stand, which we found ourselves ending most nights at, enjoying a nice sausage, a beer, and talking with the locals. Here in this video, we are trying the local Ottakringer beer and having a mustard sausage that is served with a piece of bread. We ended up having this meal most times to end our nights here in Vienna. To end our last day in Vienna, we headed to Cafe Milano, which was a 1 block right from our place that we were staying at, so it was very convenient. We then tried a Sachertorte, which is Vienna's most famous dessert. It is celebrated for its rich chocolate flavor, balanced sweetness, and luxurious texture, making it a must-try for visitors exploring Vienna's vibrant culinary scene. We then tried the apple strudel, which consisted of a thin, flaky dough which is rolled around in spiced apples, sugar, cinnamons, raisins, and nuts. This is my recommended Austrian dessert option for the non-chocolate lover. We then headed out into the Vienna countryside. We visited a local monastery. However, we did not get much footage there. We decided just to relax and take in the local scenery here as we look out into the valley. Upon coming back into Vienna, we took the Straßenbahn, which was Vienna's public tram system. We bought the Vienna City Pass, and we found this to be very economical when wanting to travel on Vienna's public tram system more than 3 times a day. From the tram, or the Straßenbahn, to the U-Bahn, or the metro system, we then popped out right under Prater Amusement Park. The Prater Amusement Park in Vienna is one of the oldest and most famous amusement parks in the world. Its history dates back several centuries and is closely intertwined with the history of Vienna itself. The area, now known as the Prater, was initially used as imperial hunting grounds in 1162. Emperor Joseph II opened the Prater to the public in 1766, transforming it from a private hunting ground into a public leisure area. This decision laid the foundation for its development as a place for recreation and amusement. This giant Ferris wheel was erected in 1897 to mark the 50th year of Emperor Franz Joseph's placement on the throne. It has been a contributing feature to the city skyline ever since. Situated right near the entrance to the Prater Amusement Park, its cabins offer wonderful views of the city and the Prater Park itself. After the Prater Amusement Park, we then headed back to our hotel and packed up our things and had one last dinner within Vienna. In the morning, we were heading to Graz, Austria. This is a smaller, but yet not insignificant city within the country of Austria. I'm super excited to share that journey with you guys, so stay tuned to the next video, and I will see you guys in Graz.